We want to talk today about how we can get in touch with more new people. This seems to me to be perhaps one of the single most important subjects of network marketers, certainly those that are past 12 months in the business. How do I reach out and attract new people into my business? So I want to talk about that today. I want to share some personal experiences in reaching out to new people, and also share some experiences that I've had just in being involved in the industry for so much. So I want to share 3 things that I feel will really make a difference. If you've got a pen handy, I'd encourage you to take some notes. Of course, this is being recorded, so you can get to listen to it afterwards. Now, these 3 things I need to highlight or emphasize will not come across at first glance as a silver bullet. You won't go to yourself, of course, why didn't I think of this? If only I'd have known this one point 10 years ago, my business would be dramatically different. What you will find is that you'll go, yeah, I kind of knew that. I just haven't quite been doing it as much as I should. What we often find is that the keys to making our business grow, not just our business, any business, are often built on some common sense, are often built on some feeling, and it isn't necessarily rocket science, and it isn't necessarily a hidden truth buried in the midst of a numerous or countless business books or expert speakers' messages hidden away there in some stone that wasn't quite unturned properly. So here are the 3 things that I want to share with you, and I'd encourage you to pay close attention, because I recall being at a meeting a number of years ago when I was 22 years old. I joined my first network marketing company as a distributor. I was 22, and I attended a meeting where we were getting some fantastic instruction from one of the top leaders in the UK. He was two levels above me. And he shared some practical advice. Now, this compensation plan required people to have 3 solid legs. And before, you had to build them 1 leg at a time. You build this leg, everyone that you recruit goes into this leg until it's qualified, and then the next lot go into the next leg, and then the next lot go into the next leg. Now, they explained this in the meeting, but I didn't fully grasp it or connect with it, because as they shared it, it just seemed to flow from one point to the next, and I didn't realize quite how significant that point was. So in my recruiting frenzy, I sponsored a lot of people. I thought they would be going across my 3 separate legs, and these 3 would go here, and I'd build this leg that way. And of course, it didn't work that way. And all of my key people that I thought were my key people all went into leg number 1, and I didn't qualify for critical bonuses like I thought I was going to do. I was devastated. 22 years old, and I thought, why didn't someone explain this to me? And then I found out they did. I just wasn't paying attention, or I didn't give what they were teaching me enough credit or enough value for me to really take note. So I share that to emphasize what I'm sharing might seem simple and straightforward, but I want you to take note, because it is a really critical principle that I want to share. The first one is get into the habit of talking to everyone. Now, I was on an ABC with Julie Tara last week, and I was asked how I go about building my business, particularly perhaps my personal group. And I talked about this principle of talking to everyone. One of the challenges is when we look at this in the context of skills, what we tend to do is apply it in fits and bursts. I will speak to a lot of people tomorrow. On the weekend, I will reach out to people on my contact list, and I will spend 2 hours going through my list. And then I need to put it into the context of, how do I set appointments? How do I reach out to people? What do I say? What is the best method? Are there scripts involved? And so on. And then it becomes quite a scientific process. It becomes a skill-based activity. And with it being sporadic, we don't always get into the flow of really what makes a difference. So when I talk about talking to everyone, let me explain what I mean by that. For me, when I talk to everyone, it's really just that. I want to be myself. I want to be friendly and kind. I want to be interested in other people. I want to ask them questions about what makes them tick, what they're interested in, how life is going. Not to be a nosy Parker, but to be a nice guy and to be interested. Because in the process of asking questions, we can find out all sorts. And then in doing so, we can reach out and make a difference. And the critical thing is, if we get into that routine of talking to people wherever we are, whatever we might be doing, striking up conversations, being polite and being friendly and being interested, first of all, you'll start to find that over time it becomes second nature. Then you find when it becomes second nature, you're building the business and you don't even realize you're doing it. You're doing business things simply by being yourself. And isn't that a nice way to be? Isn't that a great way to build your business? I think so. So let's try to get into the habit of talking to everyone. Then you'll start to find that opportunities will present themselves at times where you least expect it. I had a friend, I'll share an example. I've used this example a number of times, and I'll share some of my own in a minute, but this one I just love. And I like what Michelle just said there, be interested versus interesting. Again, the critical point here, and Michelle's just picked up on that, is we place the attention on others versus ourselves. And I'll share a point again after this experience. So in this process of learning to talk to everyone and just being ourselves, being interested in others, we'll start to find these opportunities coming up all over the show. A friend of mine was at an airport having finished some meetings overseas, and he's returning home to the States where he lived. And this is what happened. As he's checking in his bags, he was one of these guys, what I would consider is a master recruiter. He would recruit, on average, between 4 and 8 people every month. And he had a record of this, not just for a few months. He had a record of recruiting 4 to 8 people a month, on average, for about 15 years. He was just all the time, nonstop recruiting. People say, how does he do it? Let me share with you one of the things he did. He's at the airport. He's checking in his bags, and as he's checking in his bags, the lady that's taken them yawns. And because he's a guy that talks to everyone and is a friendly, chatty person, he responded. Many of us would have just looked the other way, maybe even thought, that's not great customer service if you're yawning while you're serving me. But he didn't look at it that way. He turns around and says, been a long day? And she says, yeah, getting to the end of my shift. But, yeah, I'm getting pretty tired standing on my feet all day. He said, well, he says, I hope they pay you enough. He says, because you're good at what you do. I hope they pay you what you're worth. And she said, I wish. Now, of course, anyone, if you were to ask them, I hope you're paid what you're worth, how many people would say, yes, I am? Not many, right? So he says, well, I sure hope they pay you what you're worth because you do a great job. Well, actually, they don't. They don't? Well, that's dreadful because you've got such a lovely smile. You're so friendly and chatty. That's a tragedy. He says, I'm in a business where we help people to get paid what they're worth. Obviously, I'm checking in right now. I'm taking off, but maybe we should exchange contact details. And this doesn't need to conflict with what you're doing, but if you want to get paid what you're worth, maybe we should have a chat. And of course, she goes, that would be very good. I'm interested. And they exchanged contact details. There he was while he's checking in his bags in a different country, gathering people's names for people to speak to about the business. I was in a taxi not that long ago. And of course, taxi drivers are fairly chatty people. And I got chatting to him and asked him how he likes his job. How long have you been driving your taxi? Years. Do you like what you do? Yeah, let's get chatting again. Let's be interested in other people. He did like what he did, but of course, he was always looking for ways to make more money. He considered himself a bit of a mover and a shaker and a wheeler dealer. And I said, it's really interesting you say that because my job is to connect people like you with great opportunities. And if you're interested in finding new ways to do exactly what you're doing, but to have additional income streams, we should talk. We don't have time now, of course, because we've only got a few minutes in the taxi. But if you want to, maybe we should sort of, hey, Ben, that sounds fantastic to me. Absolutely. Yes, please. And we exchange contact details. If we get into the habit of opening our mouths, talking to people and just being interested. I think that can really make a difference and go a long way in finding people to introduce to our business. At the same time, I would highlight, whilst we want to be interested in others versus interesting to others, as Michelle put, we should also be genuine. You cannot fake sincerity. In fact, it tends to have the total opposite effect when we try to. It is really important that we are genuinely sincere in our interest in others. And one of the ways that we can demonstrate that is by looking for ways to serve them. I've had plenty of situations. I had a situation this weekend. I saw a lady on Sunday, and she was looking down. It's the second time in a row that she was looking disheartened and discouraged. And I said to her, "You look like you're in need of a hug and someone to talk to. Do you want to come over to my place and chat and share what's going on?" And she said she'd love to. And she was going through some tough times. And she came over this morning, and Kim and I, because Kim and I work together very closely in the business, Kim and I sat down and we had a chat with her for about an hour, just finding out how she's doing. And she shared her burdens, and we were able just to lift a load, give her a hug, and let her know she's loved. That was a nice thing to do. And I don't share that to boast in that activity, but I share it to highlight a point. As she's walking out the door, she says, "Ben, there's a lady that I met that works at a chain of hotels. And I was talking to her, and it seems to me, because she knows that I'm in NECANN, because we have these conversations, yeah, that I think we've got an opportunity here to get the waterfall into a number of hotels that she's responsible for. I need to follow up and get her number, but maybe I could do that and we could have a visit with her together. What do you think?" Wow, that'd be fantastic. Now, what just happened there? What we find is that when we do good for others, they instinctively, more often than not, will want to do good in return. Haven't you found that? A simple example, smile at someone and watch what happens. Don't you find that they smile back? Absolutely. Madeline's doing that right now. At the very thought, a big grin came on her face. You see what happens when we do nice things for others? People will want to reciprocate. If you want to make friends, find yourself friendly. Yeah, and that's a great way to do it. Now, I think this is really important for a number of reasons. One, it gets to one of the key problems that our industry faces, which is reputation. One of the great reputation problems that we face is that many people miss out on understanding this critical point. They do the opposite. How can you help me? How can you serve me? What can you do for me? Let me show you how I can help you, without even asking a question. So, step number one, get into the habit of being friendly, being nice, and just talking to people every day. Every day. We're out and about all the time. Look for those opportunities. It'll really, genuinely make a difference to your business. And of course, it will build up over time, and opportunities will start to come to you at moments that you didn't expect it. And sometimes just when you need it at most. It tends to work out that way quite a bit. We've had a comment here. It says, "For me, often the kindness comes down to the road and not always a direct exchange. Comes down the road, sorry, and not always a direct exchange. You reap what you sow." Molly, that's really right. It doesn't always happen like I experienced it this morning, where immediately someone wants to give back. It will often come back down the road. But what a great way to have that happening time and time and time again. It isn't coincidence when we find people that just keep on coming up saying, "Can I talk to you about this? Can I ask a question about that?" It's not coincidence. It's not fate. It's how we live our lives. And this is that principle that Mike talks about all the time, called the law of attraction, isn't it? That's what it's all about. So I've labored that point quite enough. The second point I wanted to talk about, again, I found really helpful, and that is asking for referrals. That first point where we're talking to everyone is a soft approach that we should be applying in our business every day. Every day. Now, asking for referrals can sometimes be a more direct approach. And the reality is we do need both in order to build our business effectively. Now, what do I mean by asking for referrals? It's simply this. Sometimes when we talk to someone, they might say, thank you so much, but this isn't for me right now. Maybe, for example, you've said to someone, I've got this event that I'm going to, or maybe that I'm hosting. I would love for you to be a part of it. Please, would you come along, check it out? I think you'd really like it. You explain it and they say, oh, you know what, I'd love to, but I've got to say no this time around for whatever reason. And there can be a host of reasons. My point here is don't stop there. And I'm not saying pester them. What I'm saying is respect their response. Say, thank you so much for letting me share this. Understand, respect your feelings. Out of interest, is there anyone that you know that might be interested in pursuing a life of active wellness or would be interested in a business opportunity that is connecting with new trends in the way that business is moving into the future? If you do know, would you please mind sharing with me their name or maybe their contact details so I could reach out? Would you object if when I call them, if I was to mention your name and let them know that you encouraged me to get in touch? I think this is an important principle to apply whenever we're talking to someone. Even if they turn around and say, yes, I'm interested, don't stop there. If they say, hey, I'd love to come along to this meeting, I think it would be great, I'm excited, and they show all the enthusiasm in the world, don't stop there and go, great, I've got someone coming to the meeting. Move on to the next step. So pleased that you're excited, really glad that you're coming. Before we close here, or before we say goodbye, is there anyone else that you know that has the same feelings that you've expressed that might want to come along and join us? I think that's a really important question to ask. Let me share with you another example. This goes back to a different company now, but a great example nonetheless. A top leader in the business was sharing his experience. He was the equivalent of a Royal Diamond, about how he joined the company. And he said, let me share with you how it happened. And he used this principle of asking for referrals. He said, his sponsor was sharing the experience, sorry. He said, so everyone says, wouldn't it be great if I knew someone like Mike DiMuccio, for example, if I knew someone like him and I could sponsor them into the business, oh, that would just change everything. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be fantastic for the business? Well, a lot of the time we don't know people like Mike DiMuccio, but someone else does. Yeah, true. They're out there. But what if they're not in your circle of influence? What if they're not in your contact list? How do you reach out and find them? This is what we do. You reach out to someone, you have that conversation, and they say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. And I'll use the example of this Royal Diamond, this other company that I work for, to highlight the point. His sponsor said, reach out to someone. They said, thank you, but no thanks, not interested. Okay, I respect your decision. Thank you very much. Appreciate your honesty. Is there anyone that you know that you think might be interested? And they said, sure, you can try Joe. Let's call them Joe. Give them a call and see what they do. Okay, thank you very much. He gives Joe a call. Excuse me, Joe, I've been referred to you by such and such a person, a mutual friend of ours. I've got this opportunity. They talk about it. He said that you might be interested in business, finding new income streams. Oh, thank you so much for reaching out, but I'm afraid I'm not interested. He says, okay, respect your decision. Thank you very much. Before I go, is there anyone that you know that might have similar interests to what we're talking about here? Well, you might try Pete. He might be interested. And he went through this process about 5 or 6 times before he found that person that said, yes, I'm interested. And that person went on to become a Royal Diamond frontline to him in his organization. How did he find him? Referral, asking after referral, after referral, after referral, until he found someone that said yes. So with this principle of asking for referrals, we ask when we're teaching. I've always had this mindset that I taught for years: find when you teach and teach when you find. Yeah, we should always be in an attitude of finding, and we should always be in an attitude of teaching. That first point of talking to everyone kind of highlights kind of the share the love. It's the teaching the principles, the virtues of humans being more through our example. Well, I can't remember who it was that said it, but it was a great, well-known religious minister or priest or monk, perhaps. I can't remember who he was, but I just remember the quote. He said, you should always preach the message. He says, and occasionally when time requires it, use words. Yeah, meaning we should be preaching, teaching through our example. And occasionally, when necessary, use words. 7% of all communication is body language, is words. 93% is body language, tone of voice, and everything else. So it's important to recognize. There you go. Thank you, Madeline. St. Francis. That's right. I love that message. Always preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words. That's what he said. I would say the same thing. Madeline, you might want to unmute yourself if you want to just correct me in my quoting here.
Not at all. It's just that I need to do it more often myself.
Yeah, so true, so true. We all do. But I think that's principle of asking for referrals. Again, always ask for referrals, whether the person has said yes or whether they've said no. And if the next person says yes or no, ask for referrals. And if the next person says yes or no, ask for referrals. I had a shocking example of this that worked remarkably well. A friend of mine, I was in a taxi with him, and we're doing a business that's focused on weight management. And this guy was the master, again, at speaking to people in any situation. We're in a taxi. This time, he's doing the talking versus me. And the taxi driver was overweight. Now, this guy was from Northern Ireland. He was very direct in his language and his talking. And he turns to the guy and he says, we've got this weight management clinic. He says, and if you don't mind me saying, I reckon you might be interested in having a chat with us. Right? And he says it in this way that I was shocked. And I looked at him as though to say, I can't believe you just said that. But he said it in such a way that the guy chuckled and laughed and agreed. Right? And he said, you got to come to me. Listen, mate, we'll help you out. He says, I reckon you want to lose some of those pounds. And we're going to help you do it. And you're going to look fantastic. You're going to look amazing. We'll give you a great experience. And give me your contact details. We've got a meeting tomorrow night. You need to come along to it. And he said it. He didn't ask him. He just told him, you need to come along. You will have a good experience. You will enjoy what we're doing. It will make a difference to your life. And I'm not kind of taking no for an answer. You're doing this. So remarkably, he didn't actually ask him. He kind of told him. And as we got out of the car at the end of the ride, the taxi driver gets out. He shakes his hand. We're chatting. We're exchanging contact details and we're having a laugh. And then my friend asks for a referral, and you know how he does it. He pats the guy on the stomach. He taps him on the belly, right? And he says, I reckon you need to invite your mum over too. Is your mum interested in losing a bit of weight? And he says, yeah. He says, bring her along. She'll have a great experience. Okay, I will. And I hopped in the car. We walked off, and I said, how did you know that his mum would want to lose weight? And again, like I said, he just had a brash way of talking. Some people would love it. Some people would hate it. And he said, fat kids often have fat parents. And I was like, that's brutal. And but my point is this. Now that's an extreme example, and I share it. Why? It'll stick in your head. You'll remember that, right? But my point is this. We can have our prospects bringing prospects to our meetings. We don't need to stop with a prospect. So when you have people saying, yes, they'll come along, remember that they can bring guests too. And what a great way to have your business starting, because then this is the exciting thing. When you sit down, and as we say, it's the meeting after the meeting that always makes the difference, isn't it? Yeah. So we're sitting down after the meeting, and you're sitting down with your prospect, and you're telling them how to get started. They're asking some questions, and you go, by the way, you're already ahead of the game. You've got people that you brought with you. What does that do for that person in their confidence? It's massive, isn't it? And they go, yeah, because if they're going to sign up, I'm definitely signing up. So the fact that they're present, even if they've not said anything yet, the fact that they're present motivates the prospect to say yes. And then with their excitement, remember, convincing teaching comes from conviction. So with their conviction and their excitement, they then turn to their prospect who then gets excited and says, well, if you're doing it, I'm doing it, because it looks like we're doing this together. And then lo and behold, you've got 2 generations that are being built straight away. This is a great way to build the business. So talk to everyone, always be in an attitude of finding, always be in an attitude of asking for referrals. And when someone says no, ask them if they know someone. If someone says yes, ask them if they know someone. My final point in these last couple of minutes is work with urgency. I have found, as we put together this world tour for active wellness, it stimulated some urgency in the hearts and minds of others. Yeah? And this has been fantastic, and it stimulated activity, and as a consequence, things happen. Remember what I said before, convincing teaching comes from conviction. And likewise, what I've learned as a teacher and as a trainer many years ago is that often it's not the skills of the trainer or the teacher that really makes a difference in their student. It's their love of the subject. It's their love of the people they teach that really makes the difference. So when you're excited, when you're enthusiastic, whether you're great or not at getting the words out, like, for example, my Irish friend that would say all the wrong things conventionally, what he said should not have been said. But he would say it with enthusiasm, with genuine interest in the other person, and with just general happiness and lightness, and the people would respond positively, and they'd react. And he would always, left, right, and center, be signing people up into the business and getting referrals. We'd be out at lunch, having dinner, and the waiter, he'd end up getting their contact details. All the time. I don't think I went to a single restaurant or got out of a single taxi without him getting someone's contact details. He'd do it all the time. Why? Open the mouth, be interested, be genuine, be excited, and work with urgency. So my invitation is really, please, ladies and gentlemen, please get involved if you're not yet in this wonderful world tour of active wellness. If you're hosting a meeting, if you're attending meetings, if you're teaming up with people that are hosting meetings, if you're working together, please understand that they will work for the maximum good for you and for your business if we reach out and talk to as many people as possible and invite them to join us.